Hello guys and welcome back to HJW Gaming. In this video I'm going to be taking a look at the new Underhill Report released by the Rise to War developers with the intention of giving us the roadmap for Rise to War 2.0 as well as a little bit more information about how the PvE server is going to be implemented and more future developments. So we're going to do a kind of live watch through and give all of my thoughts and opinions and things that I can analyse based on what they've released, and hopefully you really enjoy that. If you do, smash the like button, and yeah, without further ado, we'll kind of give this the live watch. So Jared Underhill is
Hello,
the
Tacticians. I'm Jared
developer
Underhill,
who's going to
Senior
be running
Community
us
Manager
through.
for the Lord of the Rings Rise to War.
Says it himself.
I'm here this time to share more news with you about the upcoming release of the 2.0 Plus version of the game. Not long ago, we held a live meeting with some veteran tacticians and fearless pioneers to discuss the proposed upcoming roadmap for the Lord of the Rings Rise to War. We are still adjusting the new content based on the feedback we have received with the hope of bringing an exciting, brand new Middle Earth to all tacticians.
Okay, that's good. So they're still adjusting content at the moment, which hopefully they're adjusting based on the feedback they're receiving in the PvE server, as I think anyone who's played in that server will be aware that a lot of the changes leave a lot to be desired at the moment. So hopefully they are adjusting based on that feedback. But
it's like the introduction.
Yeah, so hopefully they're taking all that on board. They haven't taken too much on board so far.
Without further ado, let's take a look at the roadmap ahead so that you can get a better idea of how version 2.0 Plus is going to be rolled out. Version 2.0 Plus's launch is going to be divided into several phases. Pre-registration phase. The pre-registration event will be ongoing throughout the version 2.0 Plus update, so tacticians can pre-register on the event page. By reaching certain milestones...
Okay, so many of you will already be aware of this, is that the pre-registration is currently available. I'll drop the link in my description as well, so if anyone wants to pre-register, you can click on that. Basically, it's just a registration to, I think, kind of show how many players are currently active, so they can get a good idea who's kind of ready and waiting for this this release of Rise to War 2.0. I'd recommend doing so. There's not really any reason not to. You do get some fairly mediocre rewards. Obviously, the speed ups and things like that are, you know, not really that important. But free respect items and free gems, why not? You might as well just click it anyway for the sake of getting those. But yeah, if you haven't done so already, I'd recommend doing that. But I do notice they have, so you've got the stages kind of along the bottom. We have the pre-registration phase. We have the version 2.0 update phase, which I assume he's going to get to in a moment, but that will be the release of what I assume is the PvE server currently being tested. That'll be the general release across all servers. Hopefully he covers, or Jared covers why we are, why we're going into this and what will happen to servers that are currently underway during the time where that is going to be released. We then have this kind of middle level, which is the 2.0 engine revamp test. So that appears to confirm that the PvE server will be coming in its current format. So without the upgraded engine, it will be coming in the same engine that the current game's played through. And then the engine upgrade will come after this, essentially. We then at late November have the second PvE phase, which I assume is more testing for further updates, which will come in future. And then just behind me here, we have version 2.0 plus. They're making this kind of communication extra detailed. As we get third or fourth updates, do they just add a number of pluses every single time? Anyway, let's let Jared kind of explain through and talk over as he goes.
The pre-registration event is for all servers, and registering
so rewards, as you say, random bits of basic respect.
As of right now, this update will be centered around the content being tested during PvE.
Okay, so that's confirmed the PvE content's coming.
And equipment. We will optimize details around the update based on feedback received in the PvE.
Okay, so there might be balance changes, so that's a good thing to hear. If they're basing their changes on feedback, that's definitely a good thing to hear, because they definitely need to make changes on what's in PvE at the minute, because currently in PvE there's a lot of problems. For example, like healing commanders don't really work. They don't provide a large amount of healing. Troop support commanders don't really work. The only commanders that are worth using really are kind of DPS commanders. So even on both sides, you're seeing like a lot of alerts coming back in the meta. Good side, Dane Ironfoot is absolutely ruling. And there's not really a lot of reason to use anything other than that, because the healing and the troop support doesn't work very well. So hopefully that feedback is going to kind of improve that area, and they don't just release straight away into the wild what's already in PBE, as that would be pretty horrific for the state of the meta, as everyone will just rush to the same 2 or 3 commanders. That's kind of all I have to say on that.
Fair, equal battle system upon release. We also want to acknowledge and guarantee the time and resources tacticians have invested into their favorite commanders and equipment, and will continue to have a stable performance in version 2.0.
Okay, so that's interesting. He doesn't really detail much about when this is coming and what happens to those that were already in the server. It just says early November, so I don't know if it's a specific date it's coming, and if you're in a server you get forced straight into that, or if it's just when your server ends after that early November point, you then get pulled into the new servers, which I assume would be the case based on what they've done previously, but again, that's no guarantee. So now let's look at the new engine update. It looks really nice, to be fair.
In addition to the new battle system,
definitely a good graphical improvement.
Version 2.0 with the upgraded visuals, textures.
So I'll pause this here actually. So you can see the new visuals look really, really nice. There's definite improvement on the current game. Yeah, particularly the mountains with the fog and everything looks fantastic. The terrain looks really good, especially when you compare it to kind of square tile-based game we have at the minute, where everything, you can tell each one is an individual tile. This looks like a lot more of a kind of smooth, fluid map. However, I'm kind of combining this with the previous statement with PBE coming, is that the problem you're going to get is good graphics and, you know, a big graphical improvement and a push for marketing of the game, things like that, will really help with an influx of new players, which obviously would be a good thing for Rise to War 2.0. Rise to War's been out for a long time, and an influx of new players would be good. However, the biggest problem Rise to War's always had is not really bringing in new players. The Lord of the Rings name on its own tends to do that quite well. You know, if people search Lord of the Rings, Rise to War is the first game that will always come up. And so you can imagine people are going on it and giving it a try. But a lot of the time, the kind of complexity and, you know, general imbalance of the game leads to people not being retained. It usually falls on the shoulders of experienced players replaying Season 1s to help those kind of Season 1 players along. If they don't get that, or if they get, you know, obliterated, they won't continue playing the game. So perhaps it's probably better to focus on fixing the problems first rather than just the engine update, as the engine will pull people in, but you want to retain those people. You know, I think the community as a whole wants those people to be retained, as, you know, if the community keeps growing and the game keeps growing, that's great for everybody. But if the community starts dropping, that's going to be a big issue if people, you know, don't stay retained. And it's obviously a big issue for the game as well, as they want to continue generating money as well. So yeah, I think the graphical update, whilst it looks really nice here, they definitely need to focus on other things other than the graphics. I think that was probably the lowest priority of most people's list, was the graphical changes. As far as kind of analysing other things based off this, trying to work out what I can kind of see on here, and I'm trying to work out if just outside Minas Tirith there, if that's like a little effigy as well, confirming that effigies will be returning in the release, which is not a surprise, they are in PBE. But it's also our first kind of look at the new march system. So we can see here Aragorn kind of marching around the river between the mountains. So where currently, when we march from, say, our keep to a fort a fairly long distance away, we just get kind of an arbitrary time for them to march as the crow flies straight across the map, with no kind of obstacles taken into account, and the only thing that matters really is the speed of the commander and his troops. Looks like that's going to change now. So rather than going as the crow flies, commanders and troops will now march excuse me, along the map as the terrain goes as well. So that'll obviously make big differences to march times and movement. I believe hopefully we're going to see in a bit as well the kind of terrain update and how flying units adjusted into that as well. But I just think this is a really interesting adjustment that will definitely change up how a lot of things work as far as traversing across the map. It's nice to see the nice curved path as well of that march.
Also right around the corner. For this update, we will be opening.
Oh, so we're seeing there that there is a Balrog there as well. So bosses continue to confirmed to remain as well. I imagine they'll probably remain in the current format where you have to kind of bait them and you get low rewards for defeating them, which is a shame, as of course I think a lot of us enjoyed the old boss system. However, there's kind of not really any need for that in Rise to War 2.0 if it comes out as PvE is, as gold is no longer needed in the game. So yeah, I don't think the weekend bosses will be returning. I think they'll just be the baiting bosses and the kind of lower value speed ups that we now have as a result. But again, we see that kind of march system this time with uninterrupted terrain. Oh, and we see here this is a much better illustration than thankfully what I was just talking about. So it looks like flying units will be significantly more valuable. They're used currently for high speed units to kind of help take a lot of tiles. It looks like they're going to be a lot more valuable for moving commanders around the vast map of Rise to War. So it looks like flying units will be able to traverse that terrain and go straight over. I wonder if there'll be some kind of mechanic related to tunnels and things like that, which will make other units better at traversing under the map or something like that. I'm not sure. But it's good to see that flying units are going to have additional value, so they'll make commanders significantly quicker at moving around the map, because you can see here that the Gimli's having to kind of go around the mountain, which you assume would add a lot of march time. One thing I do have to question is how that would affect a commander's range, and that's not really kind of been detailed here. You know, if you can move, say, 30 tiles across, can a flying unit just do 30 units as the crow flies? And a walking unit would have to go 30 units around, so it might use, you know, an additional 10 units to get around a mountain. Now they can't just go straight over it as is the current system. I guess that's kind of left unanswered, to be honest, so hopefully we'll get a little bit more information on that in the future. I also like this kind of, as I said, the curved path of the march, and I'm wondering if that's just literally just a graphical change, or if this is a slight move away from the kind of tile-based system that is currently used anyway. I'm also wondering if now commanders are going to march over the land and flying commanders are going to go over it, if there is any kind of thought towards, it's not in PvE so I assume not, but thought towards moving into kind of like a constant battle system where if you have a commander marching long distance, there's a risk that if he marches past an enemy commander that they kind of battle on the road, if that makes sense, if they cross the same tile at the same time. If something like that was introduced, I think that would make the battle system significantly more complex but also much more strategic, which I think can only be a good thing. But perhaps that's just a little bit too early now, but that's one of the thoughts I had that I thought would be quite interesting, particularly off the back of seeing this new march system. But let's let Jared kind of explain it himself.
Tacticians will be able to download the test client to experience the new engine long before it's released.
Okay, so there is going to be a test client so people can test it out.
Once the first phase of version 2.0 Plus is live, we'll be opening registration for a second PvE to test another batch of upcoming content.
Okay, so basically PvE 2 is coming, and that's after the release of Rise to War 2, so they're going to have additional updates and changes that we then test again. I would say that if 2.0 comes out basically as the current system of PvE is, I'm just saying if, I'm not guaranteeing it does, if it does, then I would say what is the point of these new PvE servers, as the current PvE server doesn't appear to have made a massive change. You know, people have fed back that healing commanders don't work, troop support doesn't work, that people don't really like formations. I know there's a big problem as well with the new respect 10 item slot, where that makes kind of, you're almost forced to get a commander to be respect 10 at minimum before they're usable, because otherwise you have an empty slot. You know, all these things have been fed back and there hasn't been change off the back of it. So that does make you wonder what's the point of a second PvE phase if the feedback is not going to be, you know, listened to, or it's going to be very selectively listened to. But hopefully they do make changes off the back of that feedback. I know a lot of content creators have given a lot of really good feedback. So as well as regular, you know, as well as players as well. So hopefully they do take that into account. But again, graphically this looks, you know, stunning. This is significantly nicer than it was previously.
Rivers and forests on the map will influence your marching army. More flying units will also be introduced. Version 2.0.
Okay, so there'll be more flying units as well. That's good to see. Not limited to just the Eagle and the Fell Beasts. I was wondering whether they were going to be neutral and a little bit overpowered.
In this new version, a more dynamic and awe-inspiring Middle Earth will be...
So warfare looks very similar there, kind of tile-based warfare. Obviously be more strategic with the shared energy pool.
Will be kept in this new version with upgraded battle, marching, and commander features to balance.
So yeah, we see here like commanders kind of crossing over each other. That's where I was kind of thinking why could they not kind of go to war with each other on the way? That would be quite interesting.
Most dangerous and challenging battles in Middle Earth. This update is all...
Now they're talking here about kind of rebalancing commanders. I'm not sure that's going to be the case. With the move to formations, and as I said, the kind of requirement to almost have a respect 10 commander, I think you're going to see formations with 4 commanders and then people only using 1 formation. I don't think this is going to lead towards more commanders being used. I think it's going to lead towards significantly less, as people will quite quickly figure out what is the kind of meta commander formation, which at the minute appears to be a combination of DPS units. So, like Dane, Ironfoot and Gimli, with a little bit of support as well. But everyone's going to use kind of exactly the same formation a lot of the time. So I'm not sure you're going to get more variance here or more balance like they're saying. But hopefully that does change when they introduce Rise to War. I kind of wait to see.
Community feedback and guides for version 2.0 Plus. Version 2.0 Plus is a quintessential update to the game, so we have set up several ways to help tacticians adapt to new content.
Okay, so they're going to look to bring a lot more guides.
We will open a PvE or TF for testing to ensure we leave the opportunity for optimization of the final version to be based on the feedback we receive.
Okay, so a little bit of a platitude there, I suppose, but kind of saying that they're going to base PvE on feedback. It's all good to say that, but as I said, so far the feedback doesn't appear to have been fully listened to. So whilst it's all good to say it, we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens. To be honest, but
Light series with new information.
More Q&As would be good.
Select frequently asked questions and common concerns from the community to address.
Yeah, and he's kind of said it himself there that they kind of select questions and release information based on them and answer those questions. However, they're being very selective in which questions they pick, and there's a lot of very obvious questions which they're not picking, basically, and not clarifying where the kind of direction the game is going. Maybe because they don't know themselves based on feedback, but the questions being answered are a little bit more selective. But it's good to see more and more of these coming out, so at least people know what is kind of coming. So yeah, I think more of these would be useful, and more guides would definitely be useful for, particularly if we're going to get an influx of newer players. The more kind of guides, the better, and limits the kind of reliance on content creators.
We will continue hosting interviews for tacticians in the community, inviting
okay, cool, more live meets,
players, fellowship and warband leaders, video makers, fearless pioneers, and more to join roundtable meetings with members of our development team. We hope that these live meetings will open a mutual communication channel for discussing real problems during gameplay.
Okay, that's great to see. So there's going to be more meetings between not just content creators. I know quite a few other content creators who have had discussions with the devs, like Fellow of the Rings and All Things Middle Earth. But now there's actually going to be other inclusions in there, which is going to be warband leaders. So they're going to pick out, assumably, a select number of certain size warbands or certain number of season warbands, and get their leaders involved with the discussions to get their kind of feedback, which definitely would be good. And they also mentioned long-time players as well. So hopefully they kind of get a good balance of players involved and take a listen to everyone's opinion and take it on board and make the adjustments based off that. It's good to see kind of more people's opinions being considered and a further continuation of the discussions with the devs. It's good that the devs are open to those discussions at least, because otherwise, if they don't play the game as much as a lot of other people, they may not be experiencing the same problems, particularly when the game releases. And I'm going to kind of talk about this screen here, which is I've paused on as well. So they're saying some of the benefits of the changes to Rise to War 2.0. You've got the higher commander utilization rate, which I've kind of covered already. That I said that the way formations work, I think is going to lead to people only using 4 commanders in one formation. So I'm not sure that's going to be the case. And again, the meta commander formation will come out quite quickly, I think, and then everyone will use that. Equipment utilization, again, I don't think that is the case. People will quite quickly work out what the optimum set is for that meta formation. So I don't think that there will be higher equipment utilization. There's always going to be a best item with the best effect, and people are going to look to use that, similar to the way that as soon as the Frenzy Hammer was discovered, it was basically put on almost every commander because of the way it synergized with them. I think that's going to become the case again in the new game. I don't see how you avoid that unless you're making a regular balance adjustments. But the problem with balance adjustments is you can't really keep doing them, as once you've released the game and the current balance, people will invest significant amounts of money to get to what they consider the current meta and the best items. If you then adjust that balance and pull all that away from people again, you're going to lose the player base. People will be afraid to spend their money. Basically people are just not going to want to invest in the game. You're going to really demotivate players, and you're going to basically just cause a rod for your own back. So I don't see how they're going to, once the game comes out, improve that utilization rate, because I don't think it's really massively possible to keep tweaking that commander balance all the time. A simpler and more understandable skill and equipment system. Again, I'm not sure 100% on that one. Equipment, maybe. Refining was definitely something that was a little bit confusing for new players, but I don't think it's any more complicated than the new system where you need sets of equipment. So you need to use, say, 2 or 3 of the same item before an effect comes into play. I don't really think that's any more or less difficult than the refined system. And equipment having multiple different effects. Now currently there's equipment only has like 3 or 4 effects, whereas now when Rise to War 2.0 comes out, that's going to be significantly increased. Everything has like 20 odd effects, so that makes things significantly more confusing, in my opinion. Simpler skills, potentially only having 4 headline skills and the loss of the sub skills will make commanders a little bit more easy to understand. Though again, I don't think that's particularly a good thing, as I think having a nice range of builds and the synergy between them is quite interesting, in my opinion. I think simplifying them is definitely a loss to the game, because everyone will just run exactly the same build because there's only kind of 4 different choices you can make. And then there's kind of a little bit of a pointless platitude at the end, introducing commander synergistic gameplay, enriching army combination strategies. So I assume by commander synergistic gameplay, what they're talking about is in formations, how the different commanders interact with each other, and stating that that's a big benefit of the change. I don't think that's, to be honest, a massive change, because what you've done is you've then reduced the troop combinations with the commanders. There was always commander synergistic gameplay. It was just how the higher number of commander skills synergized with the 3 different, up to 3 different units you could have in your army, and there'd always be synergies there. So I don't think this is a massive change. You've just basically taken troops out and replaced them with commanders, and with the reduced number of skills, there's kind of less variance and less different methods for synergy. So it's just a bit of a nothingness statement, to be honest, but we'll let Jared talk through it all anyway.
We also want to sincerely thank those who have already participated in these meetings, including Fellow of the Ring, Larag, Ijibu.
Yeah, so continuing talking about discussions. We are looking to continue making discussions, which is good.
We've already collected a great deal of valuable suggestions and feedback with their help. Query tool.
Shout out to those content creators who've done a fantastic job of getting PvE messages across and giving good feedback and discussions with the devs.
Query tool to allow tacticians to compare live content.
Okay, so they're bringing in, this is good, they're bringing in like a replaced help tool, which will definitely be good. I stated earlier that with new players coming in, enticed by the graphical changes and the, of course, the Lord of the Rings IP, they'll come in and they might be confused about how to play the game. And so if they have a more comprehensive help system, that will definitely be an advantage, in my opinion.
To help with this problem, we are releasing
the current help system with kind of Gandalf in the chat bot isn't particularly great.
2.0 plus version. Account support. We understand many tacticians are worried about the value of their accounts dropping. So, to ensure the commanders and equipment you have invested in will still be effective in version 2.0 plus, and to help you get familiar with the changes more quickly, we'll be publishing a detailed conversion plan. Part of this plan is to open more options for tacticians to prepare their equipment for 2.0, including reforging, conversion,
more options and more options and trying to retain value. it's very wishy-washy. There's not a lot of detail in there saying how they're going to retain value. Because the biggest problem at the minute that you got to kind of see is with equipment. Most players who've invested serious money have really focused on getting a lot of the same equipment so that they can get not just high strengthening but high refine as well. And that's the difference between, kind of a mid spender and a real high spender. Obviously, I'm not one of those, but the difference with the high spenders is they've spent a lot and a lot of vouchers and things like that as well on, instead of getting respect, getting equipment. And now equipment's being simplified and only strengthening is going to exist. That equipment basically is less valuable because you no longer need 20 versions of the gigantic hammer. You only need 1 or 2. That equipment is, just by nature of the change, going to intrinsically lose value. So by saying that with a conversion system they're going to try and retain value, I don't think there's any way to make that the case. Similar with respect. They've said they're limiting the respect refund in previous updates, so I don't think that's massively helpful either. As of course, if you have one commander invested heavily and they turn out to be useless, you're basically you're going to lose effectiveness, obviously, because that respect is then wasted. Yeah, I'll let them carry on, but I just think account values are going to naturally lose value. Equally, there's the new Zenith tier as well of commanders, where so if you're the tip top, or you're the very whaliest whale, you've spent a huge amount of money, tens of thousands of your currency on getting respect 25 commanders. You've got the highest you can get. You've got fully refined equipment. Now you come in and you don't just have significantly weaker equipment compared to your peers, compared to where you were previously against your peers. You also no longer have fully respected commanders, because with the Zenith tier, respect essentially goes up to respect 40. So whilst the Ascension system will allow you to ascend up one extra level and you get the bonus stats for that, so you still are a high value whale, very powerful. You will have to spend more money to get back up to that kind of maximum point of effectiveness with that commander. And so you're again naturally losing value, because where you were once like 100% effective, essentially, you're now only 66% effective. If you get my drift, you're not at the same level you were before, basically. So again, there's going to be a natural drop in value there. So even with a conversion system, I think people's concerns about the loss of value are definitely well founded.
Behind your equipment and act as a reasonable middle ground for the transition into version 2.0 plus. We'll continue to post more updates regarding version 2.0 plus on our official social media. In the following months, we will be releasing more guides and information for 2.0 plus and contacting fearless pioneers about creating more content for the coming update.
Okay, cool. So there's going to be more promoted content. That's good.
With the new content. That's everything today for today's Underhill Report. Before ending, we'd like to sincerely express our heartfelt gratitude for your support over the past 2 years. We're still striving to make our Middle Earth a better place for all tacticians. Please stay tuned for more official updates via our social media. If you have more...
Okay, cool. So that's basically the end of that. So we've seen a lot of changes there. The biggest problem I have with this announcement is it doesn't really go into any additional detail on what we already suspected was coming. All it's given us the good part, of course, is I'll go through the benefits first, just to be balanced. Is that the new engine I think looks fantastic. It'll be really good to see, and it will definitely pull in new players. So that's really good to see. I think the new March system is also interesting, though we've been given a little bit, not enough information fully to understand how it works. But still, it's graphically very, very good. And I think it's great to have the roadmap. So now we no longer have where we had confusion and kind of unknown around when all this was coming. We now have a clear roadmap, or clear enough, not specific dates, but we have a clearish roadmap of when everything's coming. We know what to expect. I just wish they cleared up a little bit what happens with pre-existing servers at the time of these releases. But it's still good to have the roadmap. Now the downside, of course, is, as I said, there's no specific dates or specific details around the roadmap, and the kind of lack of detail was kind of pretty evident all the way through. There's no specific additional detail around the conversion plan, for example, just stating that there's going to be keeping or conversion or refunding, whatever they want to call it. There's going to be that option, but they didn't give any details to exactly how that's going to work and how that's going to help retain value. Clear explanation. Similarly, there was no clear information around where the PvE server was going to kind of transition into the new Rise to War 2.0, how that feedback they've gained is going to be affected in the new 2.0. So they've got all this feedback, they've spent weeks collating it, people are still playing the PvE server. How are they going to take that? And there's been a lot of criticism off the back of this PvE server. How are they going to take that feedback and turn that into a more user-friendly, more familiar game that's not ripping basically the heart and soul out of the game that we've all played for, a lot of us have played for several years. So yeah, I just think that this doesn't really give a lot more information. They've promised that they will continue communicating, so that'll be good to see. If they keep up these kind of dev discussions and FAQ releases, that'll be good, and hopefully we get more information over the future. Though with it coming in kind of a matter of weeks, I can't see how much more they're going to release kind of at the current pace they have been releasing things, but I hope it does come. Overall, I still think there needs to be a lot more information coming out so we know how to best prepare for this, but it's good to see that the devs are making the effort to try and engage with the player base and try and make clear everything that's happening. Anyway, with that's kind of everything I had to say. I don't want to go kind of too far in on this, and I've kind of avoided making too much PvE content, as I know a lot of things are going to change and I don't want to kind of knee-jerk react too much. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, kind of me giving my opinions on these, please hit the like button. I'll make sure to continue doing them as more information comes out in the future. And again, if you hit the subscribe button, you can also see more of my releases in future, coming with more PvE content as well as more just generalised Rise to War content. And with that, thank you for watching, and I really hope to see you on the next one.